So we are taking a little bit of a break from the video essays. I hope you're liking them as much as I'm enjoying making them. And we're going back to my roots a little bit with some classic horror recommendations. So these are 10 horror movies recommended to you based on your mood. But this one has a little bit of a theme because it is almost officially summertime. Here it feels like summertime because it's like 90 degrees. So we're gonna do summer themed movies. And let me just say right off the bat that this movie list is not for the film critics, okay? Summer horror is about the fun. It's about the heat. It's about the camp, if you will. So these movies, not going to be super thought-provoking, anything like that. These are classic, fun, summer horror movies, which I think is what we want when it's hot outside and we're just not wanting to think that much. But first, thank you, Kara, for partnering with me on this video. I'm very excited to work with them again because now that I'm 6 months postpartum, I'm really focusing on getting back to myself a little bit, my self-care, prioritizing my health instead of just trying to survive as a new mom. I love that Kara makes it so much easier for me as a new mom who doesn't really leave the house all that often to get all of my personalized supplements sent right to my mailbox. But also they take the guesswork out of selecting which supplements are right for me by just taking a short, in-depth quiz so I can get my doctor back recommendations for my supplements, and they all come in this convenient little package that I just take once a day. And I love that it can be updated anytime with lifestyle changes because obviously right now I am postpartum, I'm breastfeeding, so my needs right now are going to be a little bit different than a year from now. I love that they have prenatal and postnatal care as a part of their like system and, you know, supplement recommendations because that makes it super convenient for me breastfeeding. But also I wanted to focus a little bit more on my skin, so I decided to try out their collagen powder, which I'm really loving so far. Like I said, coming back to myself a little bit more self-care and focusing on myself as well. I feel like new moms forget to do that a lot of the time. So now that I'm almost 6 months in, I am, you know, wanting to do that a little bit more. So for 50% off your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com and use my code POSSESS50. That is takecareof.com. and my code POSSESS50. I'll have a link down in the description box below. So I will have all the timestamps linked down below for all of the vibes, all of the moods. This is my summer look for the day. I'm not really a summery person, so this is basically as good as it's gonna get. First up, we're going to summer camp. Let's go. Now, I never went to summer camp, but it's a thing, so, and a lot of horror movies take place in summer camps, obviously. We have the classic Friday the 13th, but I'm going to be talking about Final Girls. Max, recently orphaned, goes to see a screening of a B-horror movie that her mother made 20 years earlier. When Max and her friends find themselves in the world of the film itself, they must apply their knowledge of horror tropes to survive. Now, this is a horror comedy. I think it goes pretty much under the radar. I feel like not a lot of people talk about this movie. It's a fun one. It's not my favorite by any means because it's very comedy based. It's like Tucker Dale versus Evil. There's like that comedy. That's what it's more focused on than the actual horror, like gore or anything like that. It is rated PG-13. So this pick would also be really good for, you know, your friend that's not a horror fan. So there's not a lot of blood or super scary moments or anything like that, but I will say it's good for horror fans because of how meta it is and all of the tropes and cliches in a good way. So I think horror fans obviously would have a fun time with this movie. And a lot of these movies fit into multiple categories in this video, so I would also say this would be good for like a drinking game. When a horror movie trope pops up, take a drink, you know? So speaking of summer camp, that's like you're going to camp for a summer or a couple weeks, I don't know how long. What about camping? To me, summer screams camping, and I haven't been in a while, but I am obsessed with camping and anything camping related. So for a camping movie, there's so many. I even made a whole video, I will link up here, but I wanted to, so if you want more recommendations, go check that out. I think there's 10. I wanted to pick a movie that's not on that video because you can access that video, so why would I just repeat myself? And I'm gonna go with Willow Creek. A man and his girlfriend camp in the woods to capture firsthand evidence of Bigfoot. Now this is a no-budget, mostly improvised movie with one 18-minute long take, and that one 18-minute long take was so effective for me. It became a favorite camping movie. Now it is a found footage movie. I watched this in bed on my phone in the dark with my headphones, and let me tell you, that was like the best way to watch this movie. I think it was Martin Scorsese said a quote that movies just aren't meant to be watched on a little screen or something like that. I forgot what context it was in, but I disagree. I think some movies, it fits that setting to watch on your phone with headphones. And I'm doing a lot of that these days with a baby. So let me tell you, it can still be just as effective, especially when it's a found footage movie. I go camping a lot, or I used to. And so for me, this movie is so effective. I will say it does drag on a little bit, and I did skip a little bit. It almost feels like a long YouTube video or like a home video where there's a lot of lead up to the major plot, or not even major plot, to the major moments of the movie, but there's really not a whole lot of like in-depth plot that's necessary to those moments. So if you need to skip around a little bit, I did. It's fine. You're not gonna miss anything as long as you get to that one scene in the very end. I did not think a Bigfoot movie would scare me like it did, but it was really good. So one of your recommended moods is summer nights, you have the windows open and the fan on, what are we watching? And for this mood, I picked Disturbia. A troubled high school student becomes convinced he is living next door to a wanted serial killer, struggling to come to terms with the death of his father. The teen lands himself in hot water after a fight with a teacher and is put under house arrest. During his domestic confinement, he begins to spy on his mysterious neighbor, believing him to be a murderous psychopath on the run from the authorities. Now, this is a thriller movie. It is not a classic horror movie. So again, great for someone who's not really into horror movies, or if you're trying to introduce your friends to horror movies. This one's more of a thriller. Again, PG-13, but definitely an underrated movie. I watch this every summer. It just, something about it gives summer vibes, like when you're in Kale's room and you're just spying on your neighbors at night. I don't know, something about it is like windows open, fan on kind of summer. I do promise there's some darker movies on this list. There's not just thrillers and PG-13 movies. But the soundtrack is also amazing for Disturbia. I love it. And much like Final Girls, it was actually intended to be an R-rated movie, but Disturbia actually appealed that rating and got it to PG-13. So it does kind of cross or like push the limit a little bit of what PG-13 could be, or at least back then. When did this come out? 2007. Final Girls was actually rewritten, I believe, to get a PG-13 rating. The original script had different things going on, which I kind of would have preferred an R rating for that one, because most of the horror tropes and things that they utilize would have been more appropriate for an R-rated movie, because those movies in themselves are R-rated. Does that make sense? Anyway, Disturbia. Summer night, fan on, window open. Go watch it. Next up, we have Bad Trip with Friends, but you can't guess what movie I'm going to be talking about for this category. Shrooms. A group of American teenagers travel to Ireland to experience the trip of a lifetime. As gruesome events unfold, the friends can't distinguish between hallucination and reality. Now, is this movie derivative of many other horror movies that came before it? Sure. Is it cliche and predictable at times? Absolutely. But I do think it's really fun, and just if you're a horror fan, I don't even want to say if you're a horror fan, watch this movie, because I think you'll like it, because some people hate this movie. Understandably, it's cheesy. I'm probably a little bit biased because it came out in 2007, so that window of horror between 2000 and 2010 is really my jam, as you know. But I think it has some really good moments, and it's really fun, great to show at a party as well. And to me, the concept alone is pretty horrifying. As someone who's deathly afraid of hallucinogens, don't ask why, I've never done one, but I just refuse. This movie's effective for me, okay? It's a little bit scary. It's kind of like Climax. That's a one-time watch for me. This one is more fun, so it's less disturbing like Climax was, because that one feels very realistic. But I just really like Shrooms. It's a fun watch. Don't take it too seriously. Don't take any movies on this list too seriously, because like I said, not for film critics. But also Shrooms is a great camping vibes movie too, in Ireland. So, okay, next up, we're going on a summer vacation. Where are we going? Australia. So we're gonna watch Wolf Creek. 3 backpackers stranded in the Australian outback are plunged inside a hellish nightmare of insufferable torture by a sadistic, psychopathic local. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more intense and heavy with the movie recommendations, okay? Now, this movie is based on a real-life killer. However, it's kind of loosely inspired by him, and everything within the movie is fictional, from the characters to the killer and the situation and things like that. It's all fictional. Now, this movie to me is so underrated, and not in the same way as Shrooms. I think Wolf Creek has incredible performances and great production, and the actor who plays Mick Taylor is a method actor, so he stayed in character the entire time while filming. Now, some argue whether or not that is valid. I don't know. Sometimes that it could be taken a little bit too far when people do method acting, so some people are against it. But I think in this situation, it kind of works. He lived in the Australian outback for a couple weeks before filming to prepare for this role. So a lot of this just feels really authentic and realistic, which adds to the horrifying elements of it. Also, he was the only actor to audition for the role, so he automatically got it, but they said that he fit the role so well anyway. Horrifying movie, definitely disturbing at times, so you've been warned. But it makes you not want to go on a summer vacation, at least not to the Australian outback. Next up, we have summer daytime horror. So it's the middle of the summer day, hot summer day. What are you gonna throw on? Also, this fits family vacation. So the last one was summer vacation with like your friends. This one is family, with the family. So I would suggest The Hills Have Eyes. A traveling family falls victim to a group of mutated cannibals in a desert far away from civilization. Now, this is the 2006 one. You could, of course, watch the original as well. Now, although this is a family vacation movie, this is not good for the family, okay? So trigger warnings for this movie. I think a lot of people have already seen it and know of certain scenes that are in this that are very hard to watch. I don't watch them when I rewatch this movie. Just do a good old fast forward through some of these scenes. But if you want disturbing, this one's a good one. And a lot of the scenes are in daytime and in the middle of the desert in the heat, and it just adds to like the, I don't know, the uncomfy feeling of this movie because it's like hot and dusty and crusty, and the setting just really works for this movie. So summer hot day, watch The Hills Have Eyes. Okay, something else that screams summertime to me is a road trip. I've done a couple road trips in my time going to the desert and things. So for this category, I recommend Rest Stop. A young woman is threatened by a maniac serial killer after her boyfriend is abducted in a rest stop during their cross-country road trip. I laugh because this movie is so ridiculous, and so I don't know, something about this movie and The Hills of Eyes, I watched them, they came out in the same year and I watched them in the same year, and something about that is just so nostalgic of my junior year of high school. I think I was a junior, sophomore maybe of high school. I just remember watching these in my friend's room and just being disturbed but absolutely loving it. So I haven't seen Rest Stop in a minute. I really want to go revisit the DVD. I have a duo pack, or what are they called? It has Rest Stop Dead End and then Rest Stop Don't Look Back or something like that, whatever the second one is. I don't think I've seen the second one. Anyway, that's irrelevant to this video. But it's going with the summer theme of like campiness and fun and goofy and like B horror and kind of silly. Maybe these are good movies also to just throw on at a party if you want to make fun of something or keep it light, you know? Maybe Hills of Eyes isn't that. Or Wolf Creek for that matter. Anyway, Rest Stop is good. It's kind of iconic for me personally and highly recommend. It's silly though. Like it's a lot. Speaking of a party setting, and another situation where maybe you want to create a drinking game, I think the best movie for this would be Sorority Row. A group of sorority sisters try to cover up the death of their house sister after a prank gone wrong, only to be stalked by a serial killer. Now this one takes place post-graduation, so this one would be good like earlier on in the summer where there's like a party setting and things like that. If you're wanting those kind of vibes, this one is so good. The death scenes in this, I feel like people don't, I've said this before on this channel, so if you've been around a while, I'm gonna repeat myself for a second. I feel like people don't take Sorority Row seriously because of its goofiness. Audrina Patridge is in it. If you know, you know. But I genuinely feel like the death scenes in this are so good, and they like hold up to Final Destination status in my opinion of like the deaths. It's just such a good slasher, and yes, it's like not that serious in tone, but there's something about this that is so fun. I rewatch it all the time. It is just such a good movie. So the next category is when you're too hot to even think. You just want like a mindless slasher to pop on, although I will say this whole list is well suited for this category, so they're kind of mindless movie. But it's so hot out, you don't want to think too much. I would recommend the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake from 2003. After picking up a traumatized young hitchhiker, 5 friends find themselves stalked and hunted by a deformed chainsaw-wielding loon and his family of equally psychopathic killers. I didn't write that description, and I just think it's funny to describe Leatherface as a deformed chainsaw-wielding loon. Anyway, I feel like as someone who's one of my favorite horror movies of all time is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, a lot of people write off the, you know, other ones from 2000 and later, like the early aughts Texas movies. I feel like people just don't value as much because they see them as cheesy. But hear me out. The 2003 remake is genuinely so good, and it really offers so much to the franchise of Texas Chainsaw because the original doesn't have a lot of gore. Still highly disturbing in my opinion, just conceptually, and some of the things that you don't see, I think it holds back on. But this one really amps up the gore and the like family and how disturbing it is. The opening scene with the hitchhiker alone just sticks with you. Like, that scene is so disturbing. Again, the performances, just like in the original hitchhiker scene, are so good. And it takes place in Texas. It's hot there. It's like the middle of summer. It's just the perfect movie for when it is too hot to think and you want something gritty and like sweaty and disturbing and violent, and you want to watch a slasher. Okay, the last category we're going to talk about, end of summer. Summer's kind of winding down. We're going back to school. Now, I've been out of school for quite a long time, obviously, but I think a lot of people, when it gets to like August, September, you think back to school time. It's still kind of hot out. It's still summertime. So what are you gonna watch? You're gonna watch The Faculty. So the students at Harrington High, the principal and her posse of teachers have always been a little odd, but lately they've been behaving positively alien. Controlled by otherworldly parasites, the faculty try to infect students one by one. This is a late 90s movie, came out in 1998. I absolutely adore The Faculty. Again, the performances in this, the actors, I feel like it's just so underrated. Should I do like a whole back to school horror list? It's definitely been done before, but maybe I could just throw my hat in there and do a list on back to school movies. Now, this one feels the least summery, I would say, but I still think it fits the category of a summertime movie because, again, they're going back to school and they're fighting some aliens. I don't know. It's just a really good movie, really solid. I love the alien effects. I love the practical effects in this. I think it is just so good. It has young Elijah Wood in it. It just, I talk a lot about the early 2000s and Y2K and things, but really my favorite era of horror is like 1997 to 2005. I would say is my favorite. So hopefully I listed one of your summertime moods for a summer movie that you want to watch to get in the mood for the heat wave that is coming, at least in the northern hemisphere, of course. Anyway, if there's any other categories that you can think of, leave it down below. I'll either try to respond or someone else will respond with a movie recommendation for your mood. And just, it doesn't even have to be summertime related, just any kind of mood that you're in, leave it down below and I will use it for future reference in the next one of these kind of videos. So I hope you enjoyed and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.